Republican senators just blew up their own government funding bill at midnight. They got into a huge argument with each other right inside the Senate chamber. Within minutes, they all stormed out. Now we're even closer to a government shutdown. What everyone expected to happen tonight was pretty straightforward. Republicans and some Democrats were supposed to reach a compromise. The plan was to pass 5 appropriations bills together and pull out the Department of Homeland Security funding bill from that package. Those 5 bills would pass right away. The DHS funding bill, which includes money for ICE and Border Patrol, would instead be passed as a short 2-week continuing resolution. During those 2 weeks, lawmakers would negotiate limits on ICE and Border Patrol funding. All of this was supposed to be done by Thursday. But then the MAGA Republicans turned on each other. Here's why this matters. If the Senate passes an appropriations bill, it has to go back to the House. Even though the House already passed a minibus bill last week that included 6 appropriations bills, the House and Senate must pass identical bills. If the Senate changes anything at all, the bill must return to the House. Nothing can be different. Once both chambers pass the same bill, it goes to the president to be signed. The expectation was that on Thursday, the Senate would pass the 5 bills, approve DHS funding temporarily for 2 weeks, negotiate restrictions during that time, and then send everything back to the House. But MAGA Mike Johnson already sent the House home on vacation last week, so the House is in recess. The assumption was that Johnson would have to call lawmakers back, maybe on Sunday, maybe Monday. But not everyone expected MAGA Republicans to show up quickly. Meanwhile, the government shutdown deadline is basically midnight Friday, technically 12:01 a.m. Saturday. So now we are staring straight at a shutdown. Right now, it looks very clear. We are heading into a government shutdown. So what caused MAGA Republicans to blow up their own funding bill? The main fight was between Lindsey Graham and other MAGA Republicans. Around midnight, Graham suddenly realized that the House version of the bill removed a special provision that helped him personally. That provision came from an earlier bill and allowed Graham and other MAGA Republicans to sue the Department of Justice. Why? Because special counsel Jack Smith subpoenaed phone records from January 6th. Some phone numbers, just the numbers, not calls or texts, belonged to Lindsey Graham and other Republicans who spoke with Donald Trump during the insurrection. There was no wiretapping, no listening, just phone numbers appearing on records, like on a phone bill. Graham had previously inserted language into a funding bill that created a brand new legal claim, allowing him to sue the government and potentially make millions from taxpayers. That kind of lawsuit normally wouldn't even be allowed. After public backlash, the House removed that provision in the latest bill. Graham exploded. He demanded the provision stay. A huge argument broke out. Senators were yelling, everyone stormed out, and now there is no agreement at all. The Senate plans to return Friday morning to try again, but after watching MAGA Republicans sprint out of the chamber, it became obvious there would be no vote Thursday night. So once again, MAGA Republicans are a complete mess. They couldn't even follow what Donald Trump wanted. Trump was telling them to pass the compromise immediately, even though it was a bad deal. Some people argue Democrats could use those 2 weeks to block future ICE and Border Patrol funding. Let me be clear where I stand. ICE and Border Patrol should be abolished. Those involved in terrorizing communities and killing people like Alex Prey and Renee Nicole Gidd must be prosecuted. Get ICE and Border Patrol off the streets. Defund them. Abolish them. Period. Still, the expectation was that the bill would pass, go back to the House, and the House would be forced to return from recess. But there were also fears that MAGA Republicans in the House would retaliate against MAGA Republicans in the Senate by adding extreme provisions. Some House Republicans, like Anna Paulina Luna, were already threatening to add provisions forcing the federal government to take over all elections, something that would never pass the Senate. In other words, total chaos, like watching third graders run Congress. Capitol Hill reporters confirmed it. One reporter announced, no votes tonight. Shutdown incoming. Senators will meet early Friday, but the situation is a disaster. Senator Thune, the MAGA Republican Senate leader, left the Capitol with no deal in place. He said he hopes things get resolved and that tomorrow's another day. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said Republicans need to get their act together and pointed directly at Lindsey Graham as the problem. It also came out that Graham personally put a hold on the deal over the removal of those so-called Arctic frost provisions, the ones allowing payouts to senators over Jack Smith subpoenas. Graham reportedly got into a screaming match with Senator Thune. Graham told reporters, "If you think you were abused, you should have your day in court." He also complained that the cops need us right now, clearly referring to ICE and Border Patrol. But those aren't cops. They're not properly trained law enforcement. They're Trump's paramilitary force, and they need to be abolished. So what was Donald Trump doing while the Senate imploded? He was attending another premiere for Melania's movie. This movie was funded with $40 million paid directly to Melania by Jeff Bezos, plus another $30+ million for promotion. Almost no one wants to see it. Trump looked miserable. Later that same night, Trump sued the IRS, his own Treasury Department, and his own government for $10 billion. Yes, while the government is about to shut down. So while Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, losing health care, and watching MAGA Republicans melt down, Trump is suing the government for $10 billion over leaked tax records from years ago. Records that were released legally after a Supreme Court ruling. Those records showed Trump paid little to no taxes, sometimes only $750 and sometimes zero. Now he wants $10 billion from taxpayers. On top of that, Trump said earlier today that he does not want housing prices to go down. He openly said he wants to keep prices high so homeowners stay wealthy, even if it keeps working people from buying homes. And finally, Republican Senator Tillis attacked Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem for delaying FEMA disaster funds. According to reports, $17 billion in disaster aid has been stalled due to new approval rules, delaying help for roads, bridges, water systems, and communities, especially in places like Western North Carolina. So that's where we are. Total chaos, government shutdown incoming, MAGA Republicans fighting each other, and Trump suing the government for billions. We'll keep you updated every step of the way. Hit subscribe.